Hello friends, welcome back. This is Mehjabeen. Those of you who are new here, consider subscribing to this channel. Today I am going to explain the poem You Are Old Father William, composed by Lewis Caroll. I have already made a video featuring the summary. Do check it out. The link is in the description box. This is part 2 of the series. You are old, Father William, the young man said, and your hair has become very white, and yet you incessantly stand on your head. Do you think at your age it is right? You are old, Father William. So the young man who is talking to Father William, who is a priest of the church, he is saying to Father William that you are an old man, and because of your age, your hair has also turned white. And your hair has become very white, and yet you incessantly, that means despite your age, you continuously stand on your head. That means you stand upside down. You stand on your head. Do you think at your age it is right? Do you think that at your age you should take this kind of risk of standing on your head, of standing upside down? In my youth, Father William replied to his son, I feared it might injure the brain. So Father William gives an answer. He says that when I was young, at that time I was afraid that if I stood upside down, if I stood on my head, I might injure my brain. But now that I am perfectly sure I have none, but now that I am old man, I am sure that I don't have any brain, because generally old people are believed to be senile. Their thinking skills are believed to become lesser and lesser due to their increase in age. But now that I am perfectly sure I have none, why I do it again and again. And because I am confident that I don't have brains, I don't mind standing on my head. Because if I don't have brains, I have nothing to injure. You are old, said the youth, as I mentioned before. Now the youth continues with the conversation. He asks even more questions. That as I mentioned before, you are an old man and have grown most uncommonly fat. And you are not only old, but you are very fat. You are unnaturally fat. Uncommonly means unnaturally fat. You have a very heavy weight, yet you turn a back somersault at the door. So this man says that despite your heavy weight, you have been able to turn a back somersault in at the door. Pray, what is the reason of that? That means, how could you do that? How could you take a somersault? How could you turn a back somersault despite your old age and despite having such a heavy body? How could you do that? This is the question that the young man is raising. In my youth, said the sage, as he shook his grey locks, I kept all my limbs very supple. By the use of this ointment, 1 shilling the box, allow me to sell you a couple. In my youth, said the sage. So this wise old man, he is being defined as a sage by the poet. He is being identified or described as a sage. In my youth, said the sage, as he shook his grey locks, he shook his hair, his grey colored hair, or his white colored hair, you can say, I kept all my limbs very supple. So I used to apply an ointment on my limbs, and because of which my limbs, my body, my hands and my feet, they were kept supple, very flexible with the continuous use of this ointment. By the use of this ointment, 1 shilling the box. So he says that the cost of 1 box of this ointment is 1 shilling. Allow me to sell you a couple. Now Father William asked the young man if he would like to buy a few boxes from him. "You are old," said the youth, "and your jaws are too weak for anything tougher than sweat. Yet you finished the goose with the bones and the beak. Pray, how did you manage to do it?" Now the youth asks one more question. He says that you are an old man and your jaws are too weak. And because of your age, your jaws have become too weak for anything tougher than sweat. Sweat is a kind of animal, it's an animal fat which is basically used in pastries and puddings. "So you are old," said the youth, "and your jaws are too weak for anything tougher than sweat. You cannot have you cannot have food which is tough, which is hard. And yet you finished the goose with the bones and the beak. The toughest thing that you can swallow, that you can eat, that you can chew is sweat. That is an animal fat. But how come you finished the goose with the bones and the beak? Pray, how did you manage to do it? How could you do it? Because your jaws are very weak. That is what I presume." "In my youth," said his father, "I took to the law and argued each case with my wife, and the muscular strength which it gave to my jaw has lasted the rest of my life." Now Father William says that in my youth, I used to argue with my wife. I was in the legal profession and I used to practice arguments with my wife, and because of these continuous exercises, because of these continuous practices with my wife, over the course of time, my jaws got extra strength, the muscles of my jaw got extra strength, and this has lasted the rest of my life. "You are old," said the youth. "One would hardly suppose that your eye was as steady as ever, yet you balanced an eel on the end of your nose. What made you so awfully clever?" Now the young man says that, "Father William, you are an old man. One would hardly suppose, and because of your age, one would hardly believe." Suppose means believe, "that your eye was as steady as ever. One would hardly believe that you have a good eyesight. Yet you balanced an eel. An eel is a snake-like fish. Yet you managed to balance an eel on the end of your nose. What made you so awfully clever?" That means, how did you get this kind of skill? How did you get this kind of intelligence, this level of intelligence to balance an eel on the end of your nose despite having a poor eyesight? How could you do this? "I have answered 3 questions and that is enough," said his father. "Don't give yourself airs. Do you think I can listen all day to such stuff? Be off or I will kick you downstairs." So Father William says that I have answered 3 questions and that is enough. That means I will not accept any further question. Father William is totally fed up with so many questions. So he says, "I have answered 3 questions and that is enough," said his father. "Don't give yourself airs." That means don't be so overconfident. Don't be so persuasive. "Do you think I can listen all day to such stuff?" He says that I don't have any patience, any further patience to handle such stuff from you. "Be off or I will kick you downstairs." So just get away, get out of my sight, and if you don't do that, I will kick you downstairs. So Father William gives him a warning. He threatens to kick him downstairs if he does not get away or move out of his sight. Well, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Do not forget to check out my previous video on this poem, "You Are Old, Father William." That video contains the summary. Consider subscribing to this channel and check out the playlist. Meet you again very soon. Bye.